Well, we're here. Hey, it's Romania Black. We're on season 4 of Attack on Titan. Oh my gosh! I'm so excited. Okay, so full disclosure, y'all. The week between Christmas and New Year's, I pretty much recorded everything for Titan Week. I watched all the OVAs. I watched episode 22. I scripted and recorded the recap for season 3, part 2, which turned into a monstrosity. Those of you that watched that, bless you. bless this mess was basically the theme of that recap. And still, at the time, episode 20 hadn't premiered on YouTube or Patreon yet, and so as I'm recording season 4, episode 1, the video you're watching now, episode 20 is about to air tomorrow on YouTube, and the season finale for season 3 is about to air on Patreon. So the comments I'm going to talk about were taken from episodes 21 and episodes 19. So again, I'm going to be behind, and if something is noteworthy that I feel like calling out and discussing in the intro prior to the reaction that I feel may impact the reaction I'm about to watch, then I'm going to call it out. But it may be a few episodes in, so bear with me. But, oh my god. So I'll be honest with y'all. I recorded all that, and then I recorded the 3rd installment for January this month, which, if you watch the week 3 of January, it's a trip. And so after that, my brain was fried, and I needed a good, solid half a week off. So I spent New Year's with a friend. I traveled by train, went and visited them for like the first time out of my house in 2 years. It was great. We just chilled at their place. I just vegged out in their apartment for 2 days and did nothing. Didn't react, didn't do anything. I just answered some comments. We watched a bunch of musicals. It was great. And my brain needed that break because I was like, I need to take some downtime before diving into this final season because I've got the tea. I am ready. Because as y'all have noted, quite explicitly, the end of season 3 was the end of the prologue. We're in the story now. Which is crazy, right? We spent 3 seasons, basically. Isayama was like, I'm going to build up the prologue in 3 seasons to this story, and now we're to the heart of it. We're to the actual story itself. And we're going to spend, part 1 is 16 episodes. I don't know how long part 2 is going to be. Some people keep saying it's like 12 episodes, and they're going to do a movie. It's at least 12 episodes. That's at least 28 episodes for this season. That's basically like 2 season 2s. So, okay, sure, fine. I'm fine with that. If we get 2 season 2s worth. I've talked on Patreon about when to do the recap, because I definitely want to do a recap for season 4. I'm not going to watch 28 episodes of this show and then do a recap. Hell no. And a lot of people were like, oh, we'll just do it after episode 16. Some people said do it after episode 8 and do like 3 recaps for season 4. Given how long the recap was for part 2 of season 3, I may have to do 3 recaps. I may. But I'm going to play it by ear for now. I'm going to play it by ear. And when I get to like episode 6, I'm going to think to myself, okay, where are we at? Do I have enough content to do a good recap, or do I need to go further? A lot of people said that episode 8 would be a good point. And I'm like, okay. So, but yeah, we have so many episodes left of this series. And here's the thing. I'm putting on Twitter that as I'm going to be basically only be on Twitter to post things and answer notifications. I'm not going to scroll Twitter. I'm not going to scroll Twitter. I'm not going to scroll YouTube. I am going to stay off of all the tags on social media because it's the final season and I don't want to be spoiled. I've made it this far, damn it. So first and foremost, if you're watching this video, please don't spoil me. I love going into these reactions blind. I've done so for 3 seasons now. Y'all have been saints. You've had the patience of saints, and you've been so kind. So please, don't spoil me. If you are going to talk about spoilers, make sure to give a super long tag. Be like, Romania, don't read this, and then leave like 20,000 spaces and then talk about it. Please. Or talk amongst yourselves. I'm really excited. I do have some comments, though, before we dive into this, because I'm actually watching the Blu-ray quality. I'm not watching this on Funimation or Crunchyroll. This is a whole new experience. A lucky, amazing person on Twitter, I mentioned them a few reactions ago. I'll put their name up here again, but they actually gave me the Blu-ray quality episodes. They sent me a link to them, so I'm watching them from an actual DVD player. It's amazing. I'm like, yes, thank you so much. There won't be a lag. It will all be the Blu-ray quality. I'm so excited. The subtitles may be a little bit different than what you all know on Funimation or Crunchyroll. Don't care. As long as it's accurate, fine. And I'm sure if it's not accurate, y'all will tell me in the comments down below. But speaking of which, I know this is going to be a long intro, but it's the season premiere of season 4. Y'all knew it was going to be. So I do have a few comments that I want to talk to y'all about, and translation will be included in them, so that's what made me think about it. But P.S. noted about going back, and several of you have said to go back and watch some episodes, which I did yesterday and today. I went back and watched a couple of the episodes. Holy cow. Now that you know from everything from episodes 20 and 21, the show's a whole different show. Everything changes. You go back and rewatch it and you're like, oh my God, that makes so much more sense. Or, oh, that line has such a different meaning to it. It's so fascinating. But P.S. noted about the line of, because I had been confused in episode 20 of why Grisha said, when you find out what's most important of all, come back and I'll tell you what's in the basement. And P.S. noted the conversation that Grisha has in episode 2 when he leaves. And back in that episode, Grisha asks the questions, why do you want to go outside? And Aaron says, to know what it's like, because he doesn't want to stay ignorant. But then he also says that if no one carries on the soldiers' work, then all the casualties will be in vain. And I was like, and that ties to Grisha carrying on Kruger's work and carrying on the work of the Eldians, going along and carrying on that work towards that freedom. That's the attack titan, the whole concept of striving towards freedom. I'm like, okay, makes much more sense. Trung Ta noted, and this is a really good note too, and how I didn't mention this maybe I mentioned it in the recap. It was a long recap. Maybe I didn't. But Trung Ta notes how it makes sense why there would need to be a false king on the throne, not only for the sake of if any outsiders got in to not find the royal family, but also because once they inherit the Titan, as we learned in episode 21, every 13 years, they die and they have to pass that Titan on to somebody else. So it would get really suspicious if your king died every 13 years. Somebody would piece it together eventually. So having a fake ruler on the throne kind of ensures that nothing suspicious like that is noted. That was a really good point. And then Weird Pianist and Saus Tartar noted these two things. Saus noted how it is really sad because now that we know what we know about the Titans only living 13 years once they become the Titan shifters, Mikasa's going to be all by herself at the end of this. If Mikasa doesn't die in this final season, then Armin's going to die in 13 years, and Aaron's going to die in 7 or 8, or 6 or 7 at this point. So they're on a time clock, and Mikasa's going to be the one left behind, which is really sad. But Weird Pianist also noted that there is a discrepancy between the manga and the anime, and all Weird Pianist said, they were like, just make note, and I was like, okay, that in the manga, Mikasa has a tattoo on her wrist. Because I watched the OVA for Lost Girls, and in the OVA for Lost Girls, the mom's like, oh, we embroidery this pattern, and it's been passed down from generation to generation. Weird Pianist notes that in the manga, it's a tattoo on her wrist. And we've not been shown that in the anime, so I guess it's not included in the anime, but it's probably going to be a plot point later on. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm eventually going to read the manga after I'm caught up with the series, and so that's going to be fun. But that was good to note, that it was a symbol that's been passed down from generation to generation. And I'm like, okay, exposition. Alrighty, Isayama. Be Happy gave some notable facts. Thank you, Be Happy, saying that Grisha was 19 when he had Zeke. And this is important. He was 26 when he became the Attack Titan, right? 26 when he became the Attack Titan. And so he would have had Eren when he was 29 and died at 39, 13 years later. That, I didn't bring this up in the recap because I didn't have confirmation about it, but it makes so much sense now. Grisha was in his 13th year when Shiganshina was attacked. Funny that, by coincidence, by fate, and in that moment, he only had the option to pass it on to Eren. Because I had speculated that back in Sin during episode 6 of season 3. I was like, well, why didn't Grisha just go off and attack Zeke and the others? Why didn't he make the attack? He ran out of time. He was like Kruger. He ran out of time. He literally ran out of time and had to pass it on to somebody, and Eren was the only choice. It's like, okay, it makes sense. But yeah, also, the number 9, Be Happy notes out, is symbolic. The first chapter of Attack on Titan came out on September 9th, 2009, which is 999. And that kind of goes by rule of 6, because what is a 6 upside down? A 9. So something there. There's something to it. I don't know what episode 6 of this season will be like, but I'm pretty excited, right? And then I like the idea that maybe there's a chance, knowing all this, now that Eren knows what he knows about Zeke, that maybe, because it's funny, Zeke was like, I'll come save you. And it would be funny if Eren was the one that came and saved Zeke. Because Zeke is a complicated character. Going back and rewatching a couple of the last episodes, and I went back and watched I've rewatched episode 20 like 4 times now, so I love it so much. But rewatching it, I'm like, Zeke is kind of a tragic character. I still don't know how to feel about current older Zeke, but I'm going to bring that up because SE points out that in episode 18 in Midnight Sun, that the translation alters things a bit. The English translation does that. In the actual Japanese translation, when they use the honorifics, it makes Zeke sound a lot more caring. It makes Zeke sound like he cares more for Eren, and he's like, I'll come save you. And the way that Zeke uses certain pronouns, you would have been able to tell if you were a Japanese speaker that Zeke is probably Eren's brother and probably Grisha's son, just the way that he addresses Eren and Grisha as father, and as just the honorifics used would make you come to that conclusion, which I think is fascinating. It makes it, I think, interesting for an American audience or an alternate audience that doesn't speak Japanese watching this to go, oh, okay, because my envisionment of that scene was that Zeke was a little bit more colder and manipulative. But SE points out that no, they may have been a little bit more warmer and compassionate, and that does kind of alter the way you think about that character, right? So, interesting. Very, very interesting. CW, oh my god, CW pointed out, they were like, oh, go back and listen to the conversation between Grisha and Eren in episode 9 of season 1. So I did. And there were 2 points in that episode that really hit home. One was that Grisha was talking to Eren about saving his friends, and going back to the whole thing with Kruger says, you need to save Mika, so you need to save Eren. And Eren remembers that right before he becomes the Nightmare Fuel Titan. But before that, when Eren is inside the Santa Claus Titan, which poor Santa Claus Titan, knowing that was one of, Grisha's men now of the Restorationists, and he just got like aliened out by Grisha's son. Messed up, Isayama. But at the time when Eren was like in the belly of the beast, essentially, he was talking about killing all the Titans. And like, this is the only way, like you've taken our dreams, you've taken our freedom, I'm going to kill all of you. And I talked at length about my theory about in the recap of Eren becoming an antagonist. And the most dire, kind of dark way to think of this is if Eren does become an antagonist in this series, he may come to the conclusion that the only way to stop all of this madness is just for everyone to die. Is for all the Eldians to die. And that was the intention of Uri's ancestor of the founding Titan, that he just wanted them all to just live out in paradise and then eventually die. So if Eren becomes an antagonist in the series, which again, I'm putting a big old gray question mark over, I could see Eren being like, well, the only way to stop this madness is for just all of us to die, and I'll just die in the end, and that'll be the end of it. And I'm like, well, that's a pretty dark scenario. I don't know if Isayama's going to go full on that dark and be like, this is the solution. I don't know if Isayama's going to do that, but it would kind of go with Eren's earlier resolve about killing all the Titans. You could kill all the Titans if you kill all the Eldians, because then there's no one to become a Titan anymore. I'm just pointing it out. It may not happen. That seems like the dark scenario. Like that is the antagonist scenario. If Eren becomes a full-blown antagonist, that is the scenario, that he will try to kill everybody. Just to save everybody. It's like, which is a pretty warped, messed up way of thinking about it, but it's Isayama. We shall see, right? And then finally, as I've talked for, 13, 14 minutes, God, Christopher Peterson notes that about the sun and the moon, I hadn't thought about this, that the whole thing about the sunlight affecting the Titans, it may not be, that may have just been a theory, and that the whole Titans shutting down at night and not moving may just be based on circadian rhythms, that they're just imitating their former human selves, that humans sleep at night and are awake during the day, and they're just rhythmically repeating that pattern, and there's not any actual magic or mysticism to it. And I'm like, interesting. I like that idea. I like that idea. It's interesting. But yeah, so those are my notes from the last set of episodes. Like I said, I'll probably include some more, because if I think that they're going to contribute to the conversation going into this season, sure. But I'm in no man's land now, y'all. Before we had it, the only thing we know of is that it's being set up the Eldians versus the Marleyans. It's being set up Eldia versus Marley. And Eren doesn't quite seem on board with that entirely, or he sees the writing on the wall of how bad this is going to get. We still don't know the rest of the story. We still don't know all the Titan side that live in Marley, all the Eldians that are in Marley. We don't know their full side of the story. Because, like Nathan Hardy pointed out in the comments, I was looking at some today for episode 21, the idea is that, yeah, these Eldians that are in Marley, they're basically being forced to become Marleyan soldiers against their will, and in exchange they get basic human rights. It's kind of twisted and messed up. So I'm curious to know what we're going to do with that. And I feel like the whole line from Reiner and Bertolt, we were just kids, we didn't know anything, that hits so hard now. That hits so damn hard, and it hurts. And I'm like, I feel for them. So anyway, keeping an open mind going into this. Y'all have told me this series is going to get bonkers. I'm ready, I guess. It's episode 1, so it won't get too crazy, right? So yeah, we'll see what's up with episode 1. When we last left off, they were on the other side of the sea. Aram's getting all existential. He's got 2-3 different people's memories in him right now, so he would be messed up. Armin's figured out he's got 13 years left. Mikasa's grappling with that. Historia's trying to keep it all together and be queen. Levi's by himself, except he's got Hanji. And we don't know what's happening with the other side, except we think Ymir might be dead. Basic stuff. So, it's been 16 minutes. Let's start. We're going to start this episode here in 3, 2, 1. And here we go, guys. Episode 1 of season 4. Let's do this. I don't know how Isayama does it. I don't know how he does it. I don't. Because this opening, it was like starting a whole new show. It was like starting a brand new show. It was like just starting a whole new show that is completely different. Every season of this series has been completely different. You start out with like a fantasy, medieval fantasy shonen. You transitioned to like this medieval fantasy horror mystery to a Western shootout that like has like 1800s elements to the beginning where you're starting to... It's funny because in the present time, we've been stuck inside parody. And in the present time of parody, it seems more like a medieval fantasy. And then when you flash back, when you do a flashback, then it's like modern day or modern like 1920s, 1930s, World War I, World War II. Well, now we're in supposedly 4 years ahead, 4 years later, and it's like, it's straight up World War I, World War II. Straight up it. And the cycle is still continuing. Isn't war such a terrible thing? God, that line from Zeke. Oh, that line. Yeah, if you didn't guess at this point, I'm pretty sure Isayama is pretty anti-war. And this is showing it. Because it's just the same bullshit. It's just the same cycle of nonsense over and over again. Like, I felt so badly for these kids at the start of this. Gabi, Falco, Udo, and Sophie, or Ufi. I gotta look at their names. But I felt so bad for them because they're like Reiner and Marcel and then part due, right? And the sad thing is, I mentioned in the recap that I wondered if we'd ever get to see the Titans that Reiner and Annie and Bertolt and Marcel ate. But it doesn't matter if we see them. It doesn't matter because these kids here, we might as well view them as the new troupe of characters going to eat Reiner and Bertolt and them because they're just representatives of it, right? It's just another cycle. So it's like, if you wanted to know what it was like when Reiner and Bertolt and Annie and them were about to eat their former predecessors, it's like this. These kids are representations of it. They want to end the cycles of violence. And the sad part is that these kids are pretty much brainwashed by the Marleyan government that if they do their part and become these Marleyan warriors and stop the devil race, which are themselves, by the way, which they are a part of, but they view themselves as separate from it because they're, on a different side, then the sad thing is it's just a cycle. I was thinking about this earlier, and I think I commented on it on Patreon for episode 21. 13 years is practically a generation, right? I think usually 15 years is like a generation. So it's just generation to generation. It's the Titan shifters and their cycle of 13 years is just a representation of a generation. And it's just Isayama showing us that the cycle doesn't change. The cycle doesn't change. It just keeps on cycling back. It's just recycled the same garbage. It's so frustrating to watch when you know that. and it's so sad and tragic. And it was frustrating in this episode to not see. I kept wanting to see someone that we knew, someone that was familiar. And then we saw Reiner and Zeke, and I was like, okay, I guess we are getting the Marley side of things now. I said in the recap, I wanted to see the other side. I've been saying that for 3 seasons. I've said that since season 2. I wanted to see the Titan side of things. And I guess by Titan side, what I mean is I want to see the Marleyan side of things. Like, how do they view things from the Marleyan side? And we're finally getting that. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. And then, yeah, so I had to bring White War Coon out because the people that are being fought here are not parody. This was not parody they were fighting in this episode. No, I don't believe so. This was not parody they were fighting. This battle here was to gain an alliance with an outside country that was not parody or Marley. It was an outside country threatening them, and their performance in this would determine with those kids who's going to be the successor of one of the Titan shifters. And that's what Gabi wanted to do well, because she wants to take over Reiner. She wants to take his Titan form. Oh, speaking of Reiner, can we just put it out there? Okay, these characters are 4 years older now. So if Reiner was like 16 or 17, he's 20 now. He's 20. That was Jean at the end. It had to have been Jean. That hair peeking out the back. He's been growing his hair out slowly but surely. Our bisexual king with his glorious mane. It had to have been Jean at the end. So he's like, what, 19 now? Our characters are adults now. If this is a 4-year time skip, our characters will officially be adults. So, yes. Why do I think Reiner's hot now? Damn it, Isayama, what have you done? No, I feel like, and I'll put it up here in the corner, I feel like when you see Reiner in season 1, people were like, oh, Reiner's my favorite. He's like one of the hottest characters. I was like, he's like 15 in this. No. But I felt like Columbia from Rocky Horror, where they're showing Rocky and she's like, he's okay. Like, I felt like that. And then Reiner in season 2, when you start to see this different side of him going into season 3, it's kind of like the lady with the microphone, where she's like, and that's how I feel in this season. I feel like seasons 1 through 3 of Reiner, I was like Columbia from Rocky Horror going, he's okay. And then in this, you see him in this episode, this lady with the mic going, what? Reiner? What now? God. Okay, and we got Galliard and Peak. I'm wondering if Peak is the pack mule. Okay. God, that pack mule thing was terrifying now, because he just had like a tank on his back and was just firing at him. Holy shit. And Galliard has to be the one to have inherited. That was Marcel's Titan. That's with the claws and everything. The claws and jumping around with the legs and everything. It's funny if that is the case, because Ymir never looked like that. Ymir didn't really change, except her teeth got pointy and she had claws, which is kind of what this is. So I'm wondering if they've enhanced Galliard with like the armored serum, kind of like what Eren did too, if there's an aspect of that. Because I think that's Ymir's Titan. I think Galliard is the one that inherited Ymir's. Interesting. So yeah, we need to talk about this episode, but everything getting painted in this new light, it's kind of bonkers. And we haven't even seen Armin. We haven't seen Mikasa. So if Jean is over there, if Jean is on the Marleyan side, I'm wondering if the whole plan was to infiltrate inside the walls of Marley, to infiltrate Marley. I wonder if that was the plan. But how did they do it? How we learned the Beast Titan's power too, by the way. He can turn people into Titans. He can turn people into Titans, but the capacity of it, that's what isn't being explained. But he can turn people into Titans. That's terrifying. Okay, that explains everything. That explains why he turned Connie's village into Titans. That explains why the people were buried underground and with the flute sticking out of the ground, and he screamed and they became Titans all together. All makes sense. And they all look terrified of the Beast Titan because they're of Eldian blood. He can turn all of them. I wonder if that's connected to the fact that he's royalty, or if that's a Beast Titan ability, if that is a specific Beast Titan ability. And they've already lined up somebody to take his place. They've already lined up Colt to take Zeke's place. So I'm guessing they do not know that Zeke is royalty, and Zeke does not know he is royalty either. I was talking with Christopher Peterson on YouTube about this. And Christopher was like, I don't think that Zeke knows he's royalty. I think Zeke knew that he was special, that his parents viewed him as special and as the end-all be-all, like the Reformationists' savior, that he was going to become the founding Titan. But I don't think that they realized there's clearly secrets that the Marleyan government doesn't even know about the Titan shifters. So I'm guessing that the Marleyan government doesn't even realize the whole thing with, well, the idea that the founding Titans kind of poisoned the waters, that the founding Titan kind of poisoned his own bloodline in a sense. Interesting. We need to talk about this episode, but also, there's so much of this episode that's just bonkers. The OP and Edie. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about those. The use of color symbolism. Like, there's a Thomas Lynch novel called Gravity's Rainbow, and it's about World War II, but it's called Gravity's Rainbow, and the cover of it is literally a bomb, you know? But the idea of Gravity's Rainbow, I'm wondering if Isayama's ever read that. I wonder if he's taking any Thomas Pynchon inspiration, because Gravity's Rainbow, it's kind of like just like the bomb and everything is like rainbow, and it's supposed to be all happy and beautiful and vibrant, but it's war, so it's death and destruction, and so it's just okay. Season 4, baby. I mean, it feels like a completely different show, but I'm kind of on board with it. That's the one thing about this series. Each season feels fresh, and it's the same characters and it's the same concepts and the same themes, but it's put into a brand new context and a new genre almost, that it's wild. And 4 years have passed. But here's the thing too. The thing of it is, and we'll talk about this as we go back to the episode, they dumped a lot of exposition on us in this episode. But the thing of it is that if they're fighting somebody that's not parody, then the whole anti-Titan... Okay, that makes much more sense with episode 20 and 21 now, when they were talking about the world, that the dominance of the Titans was starting to wane. Is that the world around Marley is gaining technology to fight the Titans, so the Titans aren't going to be the end-all be-all thing anymore. So, okay, a lot of things are coming together now. There were still questions with the end of season 3 that I was like, why does Marley want to do these specific things? But now it's all starting to make more sense. Now it's like, okay, light bulb has come on and we can kind of see this. So as we go through the episode, we're going to tinker with this idea a bit. But hear me out. I think this is kind of where we're going to with this. But there is this idea that, okay, there's Marley. It's basically Marley versus the world too, right? So in a sense, Marley became the superpower that Eldia once was. So Marley overtook Eldia and claimed the Titans, because at one point, that one guy, Magarth, we'll get his name in a minute, but he kept telling those kids, he's like, Marley's claim to fame are the Titans, the fact that we have the power of the Titans, right? So Marley basically usurped Eldia through means that we don't fully know, obviously, because it was just told to us last season, and claimed the power of 7 of the 9 Titans. And so they were basically using that to become a superpower, right? To become a superpower. And in the process, they had also enslaved these Eldians, because here's the thing, the Marleyans need the Eldians in order to keep the power of the Titans on their side. Without the Eldians, they don't have that power. So, but here's the thing that comes with all that, right? So you have to also include that they have to have resources. That's the thing, right? In order to keep all these Eldians, it's like you got to keep your ammunition ready. You can't have basically they have to keep all these Eldians alive and repopulating, so they have to supply them with resources. They have to give these people homes and livelihoods to keep a civil... They're basically like, they've created their own little colony of ants. The Marleyans are viewing the Eldians as their own little colony of ants that they're sustaining. But that requires resources. That requires land. That requires all of these things. So in the process of them trying to maintain all this power, they're having to do so much extra with it too. And while all that's going on, while they're doing all of that, the rest of the world is advancing their technology to fight them. To fight the Titans. So really, we do have a 3-way war. if you think about it. Honestly, we do. Because the Marleyans are not only fighting the rest of the world, but they're also trying to fight parity to get the Founding Titan. And why they need the Founding Titan makes all the more sense now. It makes all the more sense because if they have the Founding Titan, then they don't need to worry about these resources. They don't need to worry about keeping the Eldians happy and content and using this whole Marleyan warrior system, because it's basically like, I know Nathan Hardy said in the comments, it was like, okay, well, this Marley is basically, he has this military program where they tell the Eldians, like, yeah, your life sucks, but if you feed into this program to help us and, be a patriot towards your people, it's like a twisted version of the whole patriot thing that the Restorationists had going on. If you're a patriot to your country that, you live in, but we're basically controlling you, then it'll be fine. You'll get basic human rights if you just submit to us and do what we want you to do. And because you're the devil spawn anyway, you deserve it, right? So, but if they have the Founding Titan can control everyone, not just the other Titans, but the humans too. It can erase their memories. It can do all sorts of things. So if they have the Founding Titan can control all the Eldians together. What they don't realize, what the Marleyan government doesn't know, is that supposedly, though, you've got to be a royal family member to do that. And Historia and Zeke are the only ones that can do that. So the twist of it all that the Marleyan people don't realize is that for this all to actually work and go down like they want it to, they either have to use Zeke or Historia. Funny that. Because guess what? They're planning on killing Zeke anyway. They're planning on this cult guy to replace him. They want the cult guy to eat the Beast Titan, and they don't even know about Historia. So, well, they may if Reiner has told them about them, but yeah. So that's really funny that you have Parody trying to defend itself from Marley, but also pretty much from the rest of the world too. So it's a twisted thing, right? And the sad thing about all of it at this point is that these kids, that these Eldians that are being, used by the Marleyan government, they don't think, they've been just conditioned to view Parody as a home of devils. They're like, well, if we just get, like the Gabi girl, she's like, if we just get rid of Parody, then all of our problems will be solved. And I'm like, no, honey. No. They just want to get rid of Parody so they can control all of you. And then it'll just never end. They'll just keep on spewing out Titan shifters over and over again until they've taken out the rest of the world. That's the thing. That's the thing of it, is that Marley wants to take over the entire world and just rid itself of all of its enemies. But it can't do that. It can't get to the fossil fuels it needs. It can't get the Founding Titan that it needs unless it takes out Parody. So it's just this big ugly thing. It's this big ugly mess. This episode was just an embodiment of an ugly mess where you can barely tell what side is what. There's death and destruction everywhere, and it all seems pointless because it all is. Isayama, my dude. It's masterful. It really is. It's a really, this one episode alone has already depicted just how pointless it all is. Because in the end of it, people are just going to die and the cycle just keeps going on, right? And it's so disgusting in a sense because you can see these 4 kids who are just normal kids. They're just children, right? And it's such an embodiment of Reiner. It's an embodiment right down to the fact that you have, if you had 3 boys and a girl, it'd be way too on the nose. So they made 2 girls and 2 guys. But the one girl kind of looks like Annie, and the one boy kind of has like a Bertolt style mentality. And then you have the girl and Falco. You have Gabi and Falco who are kind of like Reiner. Like Falco and Colt kind of look like Reiner. And I noticed that their armbands were a different color. Their armbands were golden instead of red. So I don't know if that has a significance. They talked about the internment zones. So I wonder if the zones have different representations, if different zones were different colors. So maybe Bertolt's zone had a green band and maybe Annie's had a blue band. We don't know. But in the flashbacks with Annie, like in the OVA, we don't see her with a band on, but they weren't out in public. So maybe when they were just at home training, she didn't wear one. Maybe. Interesting. But yeah, so they established that that the Colossal and the female Titans went to the other side, and it's like, okay. So Reiner, I feel kind of bad for Reiner, because that means he's known for 4 years that Bertolt's gone. His buddy Bertolt's been dead for 4 years. And Annie is still nowhere to be found. Of course she isn't. Of course she's not. But Galliard. Talk about Galliard. But yeah, so we need to go through this episode proper. And see these new, and of course Isayama was like, new characters. You wanted new characters, right? You asked for new characters, didn't you? So yeah, and then the birds. The idea of the birds and freedom. And so Mappa has taken over animation for this, and it looks good. It looks really good. There's something that Wit did with the Titans that made them look more. Here's the thing. I will say this. My one thing in this episode, because this episode is gorgeous. Like, it looks like Attack on Titan. It looks like Attack on Titan. Mappa does a really good job adapting it. The only thing I will say is that the Titans themselves, the way that Wit Studio did them, they looked a little bit more imperfect and jerky and creepy, I guess is the word for it. And here it's almost like they're pretty. Like, not pretty. They're not pretty, but they're almost like they're so well drawn that you're like, oh, there's a Titan. Yeah, it's like a big person. It doesn't look as imperfect as Wit did it. And as the series goes on, maybe that will change. It was just episode 1. And the sad thing is, we've been so desensitized from watching this show for 3 seasons that when the Titans show up and start eating people, I'm just like, yeah, we've seen that. I'm more terrified about the gun bullets and the anti-Titan cannons and the weaponry than I am about the Titans eating people. That's how desensitized you become watching this show, because you've seen all this horrific stuff so far that you're like, I saw like a girl get ripped apart in episode 1 by a Titan. You get munched on? Got it. But yeah, that's the sad thing, is that Isayama was almost commenting on how just nonchalant it is almost now at this point. That's just how tragic it is. But anyway, so we have our bird of fate flying overhead. And of course, it's a symbol of freedom. And then our boy Falco here says, it's dangerous here. It's dangerous. And then, yeah, he says, fly away. He's telling the bird to get away. Like, fly away while you still got your freedom. Somewhere far away where it's not dangerous. And then Falco sees his brother. Okay, so Colt and Falco are brothers. They look very similar, right? Okay, so we have Colt and we have Falco. And they are brothers. They look a lot like Reiner. So I'm curious if Colt and Falco are related to Reiner. Maybe. Possibly. Maybe they're related to Reiner. We don't know. But they look kind of like him. And then there's just people dying left and right. It's kind of horrific. It's, yeah, just them dying. It's a battlefield. There's trenches. And then Colt gets Falco out of there. It's very World War I-esque. And I find the fact that they're all in white, that their uniforms are white, to be very interesting, because normally in Western culture, you associate white to be with purity and with goodness. But if Marley believes that it's the good side, then of course they're wearing white, right? If they believe, but then in Eastern cultures, it also represents death, right? So, yep. But I'm looking at it from a Western audience perspective, and white's usually the color that, like, you can look at it either ironically or unironically. You can look at it either as white as like the good side, like the pure side, or you can look at it ironically as, like, when you think of Lucifer, like the devil. The devil, you know, Lucifer disguised himself as a beautiful angel, but he wasn't in Christian mythology, in Christian religion. So if you're looking at it through that standpoint, then it fits, because Marley is trying to pawn themselves off as being the good guys when really they're doing these awful things to the other Eldians. So, but anyway, so they have Colt, and these guys that Colt reports to are not Eldians because they do not have the armband. And Colt tells them about it. The Eldian unit at the front was blown away. Okay, and of course, and the trench, they can't dig any farther. And then, yeah, the guy he's like, oh, are you an Eldian giving orders? And it's like, And the other guy, the other Marleyan guy, corrects Magath. Magath. He says, Commander Magath, watch your tone with Commander Magath. Okay, so the other guy behind him was actually maybe looking out for Colt because he looks up at Magath and was like, oh, what are you saying that? And then he yells at Colt kind of like to distract him. So maybe he was trying to help Colt out. But we have Commander Magath. We have Commander Magath, who is Marleyan. Right? Now, they called Colt a mutt. And I don't know if that means that Colt has some Marleyan blood in him, that he's only half Eldian, or what that means. I assume it doesn't matter. As long as you have some Eldian blood in you, you can turn into a Titan. And then Colt is talking about how they're going to basically fail the mission. And then I do like how all these characters are so distinct. Like the one girl with the bleach blonde hair, she kind of has like an Annie look to her. And then the other guy has like a Bertolt look with the glasses. And then this girl, Gabi, the Gabi girl has a very much an Eren look to her, which is intentional, I'm sure. I'm sure that the point Isayama is making is that look at these 4 kids. They could be like any of the other characters on either side. They could be like Bertolt, Reiner, Marcel, and Annie. They could be like Eren and Mikasa and Armin and Jean. They could be like They could be like Erwin and Levi and Hanji. They all kind of look similar to those characters and yet different. And the point is that Isayama's like, these are just kids, but the sides are no different. Whatever side they're on just thinks that they have to win in order to survive. And it's like, that perpetuating the cycle. But yeah, I do love the way that they're drawn. And then they've been in this war for 4 years. And these guys do not look 15. They don't. They look younger. They look younger. And he's like, wasn't I flying around with a sword just now? And then he's like whoosh, and they were Titans. And then they like, yeah, Gabi. I like Gabi's like, I'm just going to explain everything from the start, you idiot, because you've forgotten things. Listen up good, Falco. This battle is the climax of a war that's lasted for 4 years. Okay. So there's been a war. There has been a 4-year-long war. Okay. And this is the climax of it. All right. Got it. And so then if we take Fort Slava. Okay, so Fort Slava. Interesting. For a second when the bird was flying over, I thought, this is why I was starting to freak out a little bit, because I thought when the bird is flying over and you see like the mountainous area and you see the thing on the hill, what I thought at first was that the 4 years had gone by and we'd reduced everything down to Wall Sina. I thought that the Marleyan government had like wiped out Wall Rose, had wiped out Wall Maria, and we were just down to Wall Sina and down to the Royal Kingdom and everything. I thought we were gonna like zoom in and see Armin and all of them like trying to protect the walls. I thought that's where this episode was going, and I was like, damn, we're already getting there? But that's not the case. If we sink the Mid-East Allied forces fleet in its port. So, okay, Mid-East. Surely not a veiled reference to anything in the real world. But, okay, Mid-East, Allied, and she says Allied forces, fleet. Okay. If we sink it in its port, and we get it overhead. So yeah, when you see the mound, they're train tracks, but in my panic, I thought they were actually the walls, and I was like, shit, we're already down to Wall Sina. It's only been episode 1. Then it'll spell victory for Marley and end the war. So yeah, so you see there's like a little civilization there. There is a little town there, and they're covered by the walls and tanks and everything. So it's just cities within walls. It's just cities within walls, bases. Then it'll end the war. Okay. But unless we take Fort Slava sitting on the high ground, right? Okay, and we see like the tanks and everything, and they've got cannons and the bricks and everything. It's hopeless to attack the port. So they have to take the fleet before they take the port. And then, okay, yeah, so they ask, why can't the Marley fleet just do it? So this isn't even involving parody. This is just like a whole different place. But it's, again, within walls of its own, right? And so this girl's like, well, why doesn't Marley just fight? Why don't they just why doesn't the Marley fleet? And Zofia Zofia gets yelled at by Udo. So then you have these other characters. You have Zofia, which is the blonde girl, and you have Udo, and you have Gabi. And they're bandaging up Falco's head. Like, you have faith in the fleet? Yeah, and he says, it took those imbeciles 4 years to control the seas. So, apparently Marley doesn't have a good navy. Apparently, we're going to establish, I'm going to just put this out here for noteworthy notes, that Marley does not have a good fleet. According to Udo. Could be wrong, but he doesn't think that the Marleyan people have a very good fleet at sea. Which there aren't really. Here's the thing, if they're relying on Titans for most of their power, there's not really like a submarine Titan. There's not really a Titan that can swim. Can Titans swim? That's a really good question. Can they swim? Or do they sink? I mean, I guess they wouldn't sink. They're established to be pretty light. We've never actually seen a Titan swim before, so I don't even know if that's possible. That's an interesting question. I guess if you were a Titan shifter, you probably could. But if you weren't a Titan shifter, because yeah, it would make sense why they have to go all the way across the sea to turn them into Titans. They can't just turn them into Titans and send them in the ocean if they can't swim. Yeah, okay. But yeah, it would make sense if your whole thing was with Titans and you wouldn't really have to focus on the sea part of it. Interesting. And then yeah, and guess what? They lost half their damn ships doing it. So yeah, they don't have a good navy. And now they're telling us they're too chicken to attack till we take the fort. Okay. And they weren't even going to use their fleet to attack the other ships. They were going to use the Beast Titan to do it. So, okay, so good to know. Marley apparently does not have a good navy. Just establishing that according to Udo, unless Udo's just full of shit. And then, yeah. So, we established some things here. Okay, yeah, Udo has a little bit of a temper. Gets out of control there. Why'd they send us warrior candidates to the front line? So yeah, this is the saddest part of all of it, is that they're warrior candidates. These kids that are probably like 12 to 13 years old. Like, because I'm going to guess, they don't look 10, but they don't look 15. They don't look like Eren and Mikasa back at Shiga and Sheena. They don't look that old yet. They look like they're 12. So I'm going to guess that these four are probably around the 12 to 13 years old. Which was probably around the age that Bertolt, Reiner, and all of them were when they were chosen as candidates to become warriors, right? Now, Colt looks older. Colt looks like he's probably 16 to 17 years old. But here's the thing. Zeke is probably not ready to give up his Titan powers until the very end. He's like, nah, I'm going to wait till I'm totally expended upon. Which if he's 25, we still don't know when Zeke became the Beast Titan. So that question is still left out there. We don't know how much time Zeke has left, right? We're not sure. But yeah, so yeah, Colt is a little bit older than Falco and the others. I find it very funny that Falco is the name of one of our new main characters, and his whole, the bird of freedom, right? The freedom, the bird of fate. It's like Falco. It's like, okay. I'm like, if Falco becomes the one that like eats Eren in the end, that would be pretty humorous. Probably not, but I feel that name just is such a setup, right? Unless Isayama's just planning to jabate us with it. But yeah, and then, so Gabi knows exactly why they're there. Gabi's like, we are here being judged. They're going to pick which one of us is going to be the next warrior. And the one girl, Zofia, looks very excited by it. She's like gung-ho about it. And Udo's like, okay. And Falco doesn't seem very happy about it. Falco looks so much like Reiner, though. Falco really looks like Reiner. And so does Colt. So I wonder if Colt and Falco are Reiner's brothers. That would be crazy, right? We don't know if Reiner has any siblings. So if they were his brothers, that'd be kind of crazy. They look like him a lot. Especially Falco. Yeah. The time is coming. Commander Magath chose the front lines to be our final test. He knows what's on the horizon. The plan to conquer parity needs a main player. So, what lies beyond the horizon? So this whole taking Fort Slava is it's just a game. It's just a game to choose who's going to be the one to take over Reiner's. So that's so twisted and sick. And then, of course, we see Reiner, the successor of the Armored Titan, and Reiner sitting there praying. God, why did he become hot? I can't. This feels so wrong. I feel like, you know when you followed a character from when they were a kid? You know when you know somebody that like grows up and they become really good looking and you're like, oh, that's wrong. I saw you when you were like a child and now you're like really good looking. Stop. That's how I feel about Reiner. We've seen like Reiner's little pudgy faced baby kid Reiner in like the ED of season 3 part 1, and we've seen him like grow up, and now we see him as like an adult. And I honestly, I'm kind of on board with Reiner in this already. I'm feeling, I'm regretting dropping him down to A rank. Why? Why does this show make me regret all the things? But yeah, Reiner in this, like, I love this shot of him like praying, like right before, and it all makes sense now. God, it makes sense that they wanted to end it with them, that they wanted to end this whole mission with them, because they didn't want any more. I mean, it's problematic. They didn't want these kids to suffer and like go through the same hell that he's been through, and he can't tell them that. So Reiner's just suffering through it all. But at the same time, them succeeding in this mission is going to put those kids through hell, because it's never going to end. Marley's not going to just stop with parody. They just want the founding titans so they can take over the rest of the world. So it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And that, a lot of you pointed out, that makes so much sense now why Bertolt was like, we have no choice, the world's just that cruel, because they really don't have a choice. I really want Aaron to do something about this now, because I'm like, Aaron, do something. Help. How can you help? That's the question. I'm assuming we're not going to get answers about that until next episode, but oh my gosh. Okay. The successor of the Armored Titan. And God, it's so weird seeing Reiner 4 years older. I'm not usually, I'll be honest, I'm not usually a fan of time skips in anime. I'm not usually a fan of time skips because, well, I mean, they signal the end, right? They signal the end. Unless it's One Piece and it's like 10 years out. So, but usually, I don't know. There's something about time skips like give me anxiety in watching anime, because you miss out on so much. And I'm like, what happened in the meantime? Like I've watched 3 series with time skips, and one of them handles it well enough, and the other 2 I don't like it. The other 2 I'm like, didn't like this time skip. And by what I mean is I've seen a lot of shows with time skips, but I've seen 3 anime that went through like most of the series and then did a time skip, and I was like, oh, okay. And then it like completely changed the series, but not in a way that I was like okay with. And just to tell you, Naruto, Bleach, the time skips in those, I was like, okay. All right, fine. My brother does not like the time skip in Naruto. He will be explicit about that. But I'm like, okay. But it kind of becomes a different story, and it's fine. And there's parts of it I like, but then the parts of it I'm like, And then One Piece does a time skip, but it's only 2 years. And it's okay. It's fine. The time skip works very well. And then there's a time skip in another series, but if you're anime only watching that series, I can't tell you about it because it's a spoiler. But that series does the time skip well, and for reasons. But that's been the only one I've been really on board with the time skip. The other ones I'm kind of like, you just miss out on so much, and you're like, what happened? And so when they said 4 years had passed, I'm like, okay. But I'm assuming that a lot of this season is probably going to be us recounting and tying back to see what's happened over the course of those 4 years. So I'm like, okay, I'll trust you, Isayama. I trust Isayama that they have a plan and that they know what they're doing. I'm like, okay. I'll put my faith in Isayama. I've put faith in him up to this point. So, man, seeing the title of the final season is kind of insane. It's crazy with this show. But yeah, the colors, the rainbows, just all the soldiers and everything in stark white, like the explosions being the rainbow and the fire being pinks and blues. It's like, yeah, and the birds flying from the air. And here's the thing, the birds flying in the air, I'll probably talk about this in other reactions, but the birds flying from the air symbolizing freedom. For the Eldians, it's like the Titan powers are their chance at freedom, right? The fact that they can become Titans gives them freedom, but it's also dooming them at the same time, right? And then, of course, yeah, the soldiers marching. No symbolism there, of course. But yeah, the birds flying next to the Zeppelin, and then the Titans falling and smashing, and the Titans being bombs. Yep. There's so much symbolism. I'm like, Isayama, you madman. You absolute madman. Okay, fine. And at the very end, you see all the Titans like coming up like in a wave, and there's Eren as the attack Titan like leading them. And you think the OP is gonna end, and then it transitions to like the hand, like the rain hitting the hand, and it's all the hands, like all the damage. It's very like reminiscent of a nuclear explosion. But yeah, and then there's the founding Titan and the attack Titan together. Yep. So yeah, episode 60, the other side of the sea. Okay. We're back in the trenches. This episode. So yeah, they talk about the armored Titan and which one of them it will become, who will become them. And then they're like, oh, it's probably going to be Gabi. And Gabby's like, well, I'm the best soldier. And Gabi, of the four right now, Gabi is sadly the most qualified. Because of that stunt she pulled. So I do think it's interesting that they don't consider. I wonder if for the female Titan, if they had to be a female candidate, because it seems like for any of the Titans, because most of them you can't tell if they're man or woman while they're in Titan form, that it doesn't matter who becomes the armored Titan. But I'm wondering if for the female Titan they had to be a girl. I don't know. I wonder if that'll ever be explained. But yeah, poor Gabi. She's like, she makes the comment to all of them that there's more to it than grades. The difference between us is that I'm prepared. Gabi, and God, that statement, to shoulder the fate of us Eldians and to slaughter the island of devils who've done nothing but make us suffer. That's the problem. It's like the islands that's made you do nothing but suffer, but that's just what the Marleyan government has made you think this whole time. Because it's so tragic. So I'm like, the irony in all this is that the Founding Titan made parody to get away from all of the rest of this garbage. The Founding Titan was like, I just want to get away from all this. Bye. And for a while it worked. And then it didn't. And so the sad thing is that all these Eldians that are working with Marley have been conditioned to think that by destroying paradise, their suffering will end. And it's like, no, it won't. They say they're going to win this battle and prove the Eldians left in this world are good Eldians. That's the thing. That is the line. I was like, there was a line up in there that I was like, ah. And so the idea of the good Eldians. Again, this ties right back to Grisha's whole thing with the Restorationists. He's like, oh, we'll go over there and take back the Founding Titan and give it back to the rightful royal family. That's the same logic, right? So that she's saying that if we do this, we'll prove that we're the good Eldians. It's like, no, you won't. They will never think you're the good Eldians, because you can already see with the Magath guy talking to Colt, he already views them as less than human. So just because they win that battle, it's not going to change the way they think about them. But these are kids. These are little kids that think that it will. And that's the sad part, is that they've been trained to think that if they do whatever they're told, then... And then she says, I refuse to lose until I free everyone from the internment zone. So wherever she thinks that if they do everything right, then they'll get freed from that zone. And the others are like, and you can tell they feel just as bad because they know what it's like to be oppressed there. And she's making that damn bomb. This whole episode, it's so impressive in that it shows exactly how the conditions are for the Eldians on the Marleyan side. And I wanted that. I said in the recap, I wanted to see what the Eldians on the Marley side were going for. And this just shows exactly what that's like for them. And it's crazy. It's crazy. And so Colt Colt says we should let Jaw and Cart loose. Jaw and Cart. So that's two Titans. The Pack Mule Titan. He's the Cart Titan. Okay. All right. So we I'm glad we're finally getting titles. We should let Jaw and Cart loose. So we have Founding. We have Attack. We have Beast. And they called him Beast Titan too. So I guess that is the official title. We have Founding, Attack, Beast. We have armored. We have colossal. We have female. I kind of like the females up here in these big titles, you know? The woman in me is like, yeah, we got colossal attack, beast, armored, female. These men are so terrified of her. It's the female titan. I kind of love it. And then we have a cart, which I'm assuming is our pack mule titan. And we have jaw, which was what Ymir was. Which is kind of funny because Ymir was always like really like sharp-witted and sharp-tongued. And it's like she kind of like wrapped her jaw. It's like, uh-huh. So that's 8. And then we have Mystery Titan, which they're still not telling us. So why not? We should let Jaw and Cart loose. Galliard and Peek will get it done. So, okay. So we know that these two are together now. And we know that they're... So we've got Aaron. And we know that we still have Zeke. And for now, we still have Reiner. Right? And then we know that Armin. And we have Annie. And now we know that we have Peek and Galliard. And we don't know who the Mystery Titan is. So, fun times. So, okay. Cool. And it looks like Galliard has now become Reiner's new best friend. So, maybe we'll get to see them in the next episode, what they look... Maybe will we get to see what Peek and Galliard look like when they're not in Titan form? I want to see what the Cart Titan looks like. Because I bet... They'll probably be, like, gorgeous. I'll be like, oh! I feel bad for making fun of you, Pack Mule Titan. So, yeah. So, we have all of them listed there. And we know that Annie's over on the other side, and then Armin and Aaron are on that side too. Interesting. Okay, so Colt's basically suggesting that in order to take out all the turrets and everything, we just let the two Titans go at it and do their thing. And Magath is like, no, we're not going to just send them out there into the fray. If we play our cards wrong, then we lose. Yeah, he's not wrong. And they say that showed up. And it's talking about the anti-tank, the train with the anti-Titan armor, an armored train. And at the time, around this time, I was realizing that this could not have been parody because I'm like, even though technology may severely advance in 4 years, I'm like, I don't know if it would advance enough for parody to go from just having like lanterns with Titan ore to suddenly having 150 millimeter round shells that could kill a Titan in a single hit. We had the Thunder Spears, but that's a big leap in 4 years. That's a mecha leap. A very big one indeed. So I'm like, okay. But here's the thing too. If somebody like Jean is on the other side gathering intel and sending it back, then it can send it back to Parody to start getting some defense set up. Interesting. So yeah, we're getting to see in this episode what's going on with the other side of the war and how they're handling everything and what the situation and technology is like with them. And the funny thing is that Marley does not have the most up-to-date technology. They don't. They're still relying on the Titan powers quite a bit. And so, again, that ties to the fact that their resources are in some ways to keep the Eldian people alongside their own so that they have basically weapons. Basically humanized weapons. Because as we've seen what Zeke did, he just made those people into Titans. And that was that, right? So they not only need to keep candidates around to inherit the powers of the Titan shifters, the warriors, but they also need Eldians around to just become putty Titans, to become pure Titans, just to be used as weapons. That's gross. No, thank you. But yeah, so the fact of the matter is that the world is recognizing just how dangerous Marley is with the power of the Titans, and so they're developing technology that could kill Titans in a single hit. And even one of the 9. Yeah. And Colt's like, well, our Titans are fast. The odds of hitting the nape are pretty slim. And he's like, well, what if they did, though? Then they'd lose a Titan and a warrior. And with no guarantee that we get their powers back. Yep. Yeah, that's right. Just like our plan 9 years ago to retake the founding Titan. Oh, So now we're tying back to Shiganshina. We're tying back. He's like 9 years ago. God, it's been 9 years. Okay, so Aaron is 19. Okay, so we're establishing a timeline here. Aaron would be 19 at this point. So Armin and Mikasa are 19, probably Jean too. And Reiner's probably 21. Probably around 2021. So then Eren only has, oh God, he only has 4 years left. If he's 19 and you only have the powers for 13 years, he has 4 years left. Crap. Welp. That means Armin has like 9 years left. That's okay. Okay. No problems at all there. Yeah, so he's like, just like our plan 9 years ago to retake the founding Titan resulted in us losing the Colossal and the female Titan. So what he's suggesting is like, yeah, we can send all of our cards out in a row like we did in the past and look what it got us. So that it all, I wondered back in one of the recaps, I was like, well, why doesn't Marley just send all of its guns out at once? This is why. They learned from the past that was a mistake. They were like, in the past, what happened was that we sent the Colossal, the Armored, the Jaw, and we sent the Jaw, the female, the Colossal, and the Armored Titan to go take it, and we lost the Colossal and the female. So, what we do? It's like, But he puts resulting in the Colossal and the female Titan together, which I mean, technically, the Colossal Titan stuck around during those first 5 years and then was lost, as was the female Titan. So it's not like they lost it immediately 9 years ago, but during those 9 years ago, they lost it. Okay, so technically, I was also wondering which Titan at one point, what 2 Titans Marley never had. I'm assuming it's the Founding and the Attack Titan, because they had these 4, and they had these 2, and then they had the Mystery Titan. So I'm assuming the Attack and Founding Titan were the 2 Titans they never had, because Kruger was the double agent. Interesting. Okay. And yeah, the perceived hit to Marley's military might is what sparked this war. Oh, okay. So this whole war started 4 years ago. That's why it's been a 4-year war. This war started because of losing Bertolt and Annie. So when Reiner and Zeke went back with old Peak, when the 3 of them went back, so basically Peak and Zeke were sent, Piek and Zeke were sent to go retrieve Reiner and the others and be like, what the hell you been doing? When those 3 got back and had to tell the Marleyan government that they lost Bertolt and Annie, then that's the thing, right? Because all the Titans are getting split up now. They're starting to go over to parity. So this Fort Slava, this Mideast allied forces, they caught wind that Marley had lost 2 of their Titans and were like, oh, well, now you guys are 2 Titans less than you were before. You're probably weaker now, so we should just attack you now. And that started that war. Oh, wow. Okay. Damn. And I'm assuming they probably made Zeke and Reiner suffer. That's the problem. They probably made Zeke and Reiner suffer. So Reiner praying in the plane, that takes on a whole nother meaning now, because I feel bad for Reiner. I didn't think I'd ever feel bad for him in this series like I do right now. But he lost his best friend. He failed his mission. We don't know if he's gone back to his hometown yet. My dog's looking at me weird. Like, I feel bad for him. Yeah, I was like, what's wrong? I feel bad for him because he probably was reprimanded. And that's probably why when they say they need a candidate to take over the Armor Titan, Reiner's years aren't up. Well, if Reiner was 12 and it's been 9 years, Reiner only has a few years left too before he'll die. So they're getting a candidate ready to take over for him. So yeah, but I'm sure that they're choosing him probably because maybe Reiner's the closest. I don't know. But yeah, so Galliard, I'm assuming, is the one that ate Ymir. It's frustrating. Sad. But yeah, putting Parody Island operation on hold. So, okay. So they have been at war for 4 years with these guys because Bertolt and Reiner then failed the mission. And while they've been at war with this Mideast allied forces, whatever, they've been completely ignoring Parody. Funny that. Wow. Okay. Wow. So for 4 years, gee willikers. Look at that. So yeah, that explains a lot. So we don't know. So who knows what Parody and Armin and the others have been up to for the last 4 years? That's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting to find out that while Marley's been at war for 4 years, doing something else against this Mideast allied forces, what has Parody been up to? Oh my gosh. Okay. Interesting. What is it that makes our motherland Marley so great? The power of the Titans. Correct. Our nation won't last if we keep losing them. So yeah, Marley has built itself up with the power of the Titans that they subdued, and that's what they've been riding on and coasting on these last hundreds of years. The power of the Titans is absolute, and it must always remain that way. Prepare the Eldian unit for attack. Yeah, so there's 800 of them. Yeah, and he's like, what's the matter? Are you not warriors who swore loyalty to Marley? So all of these 800 or so troops are all warrior cadets, candidates that swore their loyalty to Marley for the chance to become a Titan shifter. Interesting. They have to be related to Reiner. They have to be cousins or brothers or something because they look so much like him. I feel like Colt and Falco are related. But yeah, we get into this, the 800 Eldians that are there to serve their motherland with honor. That's such a, God, that's so twisted. It's so twisted because they're basically slaves to Marley, but they're using them just as soldiers. And then there's like, serve our country that's given you this roof. And it's like, oh my God. So, and then of course, yeah, it's like the cost of war. We see everybody just like freaking out. All creatures drink of joy at nature's breast. God. And they're like telling them and I like how he's giving the order. The one guy from Marley is giving the order to prepare for attack. And the Marleyan guys are like heftier and stockier. Like they've been better fed than the Marleyan people that look like they're starving. And I like how he's telling them to prepare for attack. But none of the Eldians are like, none of the Marleyan Eldians are even like, they're not even listening. They're so panicked. But then they get up because they have to. And they're talking, your mission is to assault and destroy the enemy railroad. Oh my God. And then some of them are suicide bombers. And the thing of it is, and some of them have different colored patches on. Some of them have like gray instead of yellow. And the one guy with the locket, it's like he's never going to see that person again. He's like, let your actions purge the disgrace of being spawn of the devil. Oh my God. It's just like such brainwashing. Like, purge the disgrace. Yeah. So it's like that's like when Gabi says that if they get rid of Parody, they'll get treated better. I'm like, no, you won't. Because they're telling you on the battlefield as you're about to die that you are spawn of the devil yourselves. It's like, Like Reiner, somebody pointed this out that Reiner, and I talked about this in the recap, I believe, that Reiner called the Parodian people devil spawn too. And it's like Reiner had drank the Kool-Aid up until that point with the Marleyan government to go along with it. And it kind of had warped his own perception, right? But, damn it. This is hard. It's hard to watch this episode really over again. To be honored by our great motherland Marley and prove yourselves worthy. And then Gabi, and he says, you warrior cadets are to stand by. So yeah, okay, so the ones with the yellow bands are the candidates for warriors. They're on standby. That's so twisted because there's Colt that's as old as the soldiers that are there that are just fodder basically. But then the other four are children, like literal 11, 12, 13-year-olds. They're kids. And they're on the middle of the battlefield to be candidates. It's so messed up. So messed up. Yeah. And so I like the idea that Gabi's like, no. And the sad thing is, Gabi, she's like a hero in this instance. She's like a hero to all the Eldians. Yeah, as long as the tanks are there, then the Beast Titan, the Armored Titan can't do what they came for. And I like that the Marley guy like puts his hand on Colt's chest. And he says, Colt, as the chosen successor of the Beast Titan. Learn what it means to lead already. Okay. So, the Beast Titan is the leader. Yeah, Zeke's the leader. Which is the irony of all ironies, isn't it? Isn't it the irony of all ironies that Zeke, the one who was going to be the leader, the one who was originally being trained to become a Marleyan warrior and to go over and lead the assault to get the Founding Titan back. What does he end up doing after ratting his parents out? He ends up doing it anyway. Except he doesn't even realize it. Except the Marleyan government. They use him. He doesn't even know it. God. Zeke is messed up. And I still don't know quite how to read Zeke fully. I need more time with his character. And I'm assuming this season we're probably going to get it. I need more time with Zeke. But I feel bad for him. Because Zeke did not ask for all the stuff that happened to him from birth. And him ratting out his parents, ratting out Grisha and Dinah, any child that was freaked out under the circumstance may have done something similar. It's hard to blame a little kid. He was just a kid. He didn't know, right? It ties back to that line. He didn't know. So I'm like, I can't feel angry towards Zeke as a kid for doing what he did, because it's like, it's just so sad that he's the leader now of this whole thing that is basically what his dad both was for and against. And it's like, you don't even know. But Colt is being set up to take Zeke's place. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Okay. And Falco, of course, gets mad because it's his brother. So, yeah. So, Gabi's a hero in this situation. Because Gabi offers the opportunity to go in herself with the bomb and take the shot and to prove herself as a worthy Marleyan warrior, but to save the 800 lives of the people in the bunker. And Falco and the others try to talk her out of it. And McGath tries to argue against her and says, how much do you think Marley spent training you all these years? Hell no. So I'm curious, if she's only like 12 to 13 years old, when did they start training her? Like all these years. Was it 4 years ago? I'm assuming that they started training them like around 8 or 9. Because that would make sense if it was 4 years ago. If they were like 9 or 10. If it was 4 years ago. Because that would have been around the time that Zeke and them got back. And the Marleyan government was like, well, shit. We're going to need somebody to replace the colossal and female Titan at some point when we get a hold of them. Because too much time will have passed. They don't know if Berthold's dead, but we know. And then they're probably like, somebody's going to take over. I guess that's the whole thing with Reiner, because they're probably like, someone's going to have to replace Reiner, and maybe that's part of Reiner's punishment, is that he gets replaced. No. But then, yeah, I like that Gabi argues and says, I'm exceptional compared to Falco and the others, and there may never be another warrior as talented as I am. Like this kid, not to mention one this cute. And they're all like, but if I succeed, we won't use the whole unit. We won't lose the whole unit of 800 Eldians, right? And that gets his attention. He's like, and if it fails, she's like, then you just lost one promising candidate and 7 hand grenades. How much of a gamble is it? And she calls him out, too. She's like, now, if you think that I'm more valuable than the other 800 Eldians, I totally understand. Like, if you love me and my life is worth it, yeah, if you love me so much, you'd rather sacrifice the 800 soldiers over me. And he says, fine. Go ahead. And the twisted thing with all of that is that she's satisfied with that answer. She's satisfied with him saying that he wouldn't sacrifice 800 people for her. She's satisfied with that, but it's also him saying, like, your life is meaningless to me. Like, yeah, you're right. You're just a kid with 7 hand grenades. Go. Blow yourself up. Worst case scenario is we just lost 7 hand grenades and a kid. We've got 805 people left over here. That's the sad part about it, right? That's messed up. It's very messed up. And it's messed up that she's happy with that answer. And Falco's like, no, don't. And she's like, I will prove to you that I'm worthy of inheriting the Armored Titan. And in that moment, with her eyes like amber like that, gleaming, she reminds me of what I imagine Reiner was like. Because Reiner seemed like he was really proud and dedicated to the cause. And in some way still is. So she reminds me a lot of Reiner. That's really sad. And I like Falco's little blush that he has at her. Like that he's proud of her, and he doesn't. There's like all these mixed emotions that Falco has with Gabi right now. It's like, God, it's knowing that knowing the situation, this is so depressing. Very much so. And then her, even down to the strategy, she's like, for this to work, please allow me to remove my armband. And he says, very well, because he knows exactly what she's going to do. She's going to pose as just a random civilian and her strategy, like traipsing the bomb behind her, and the way that she fell, the way that she, like, the acting that she did, it's genius, but it's so messed up and twisted. And I kept thinking that the guys were going to shoot her. I kept thinking they were going to shoot her, right? Huckleberry thought so too. He did. But I kept thinking that they were just going to shoot her, and that was going to be it. And at the end, I thought Falco was going to get shot at the end when they shot back, but it worked out. It worked out. So, God, this is so messed up. It's so messed up. I was just like, are you kidding me? And then, yeah, the animation, the tension of all this with the train coming down, like the girl's good. Like all this training that these Marlians have given her, it all pays off. And she saves the unit. And so in one sense, she's a hero, but in the other sense, it's like, God, the fact that a kid is doing all of this. And they go back to the hesitation of this side of it. The men on the Slava side, they hesitate. They can't kill her. And that ends up causing their own deaths. That hesitation. And it's funny because we've seen that happen with the side of parody too. We've seen that happen with the Survey Corps when they couldn't kill Reiner and the others. Damn. It's just mirroring that so well, right? And so then, yeah, they all can't believe she did it. Like, I love Colt's expression where he's so surprised. And then that's when Magath says, okay, we have our opening now, Galliard, hurry up. And we don't get to see who it is that transforms into Galliard. We don't get to see it. I'm like, man, we don't get to see. I want to see what Galliard looks like. I want to see this person. And yeah, so then the guy's going to go, he says, you all deserve to die. And he lumps in, and the thing of it is that they lump in Marley with the Eldians too, right? They lump in, that's the thing, right? The interesting thing of all this is that they lump in Marley with the Eldians. But yeah, so, and then Galliard shows up, and I want to get a look. So he has the face shield with the beard. I'm like, does he have blonde hair? Because in the Ymir flashback, it almost looked like a dark hair, but I don't know. But he has like blonde hair and a beard maybe, and then this weird helmet over his face and eyes, like the helmet and the jaws, and then the claws are like bone over his hands. It's weird. I want to know what Galliard looks like. It's very, very odd. This muscular titan. Huh. And I like that they're like not freaked out by him at all. They're just like, oh yeah, hey Galliard. And just storming about. The jaw titan. Mm-hmm. And just comes in using them powers, right? And so then we have the old blimp, the airship. And it's kind of crazy, but the technology, if we think about it, so here's the thing. Zeke is 25 during the Battle of Shiganshina, so he's probably 29 now, so he's close to 30 at this point. Zeke is close to 30. So that was 30 years ago, plus when Grisha was a kid, it's like 40 or 50 years ago. The technology on Marley hasn't advanced that much. That's the weird thing, right? So is something up with that? Don't spoil me, but I feel like something's up with that. The technology on Marley, because they're still using like the rotary phones and everything, and the technology, I mean, it feels like technology has advanced a little bit, but they're still using Zeppelins, even like 50 years later. So, or even 40 years later, they're still using Zeppelins and not like other airplanes. So I'm like, I feel like technology should have advanced more. So something's up. And I don't know if there's some kind of reason behind it with Marley, if we're going to find that out. But I feel like for 40 years, them still being using Zeppelins, it's kind of odd. Especially when they talked about in episode 20 that other countries were getting more technology. More advanced technology. So yeah. The armored train has been disabled. So yeah, we got this guy. So I don't know who this... Wait, is this guy Piek? Is this him? The guy with the hair slicked back? Because he has the goggles and everything. And he has a backpack. Huh. And now we'll commence the airborne assault. And there's all these people that they look... He says, remember to stick to the plan. But these people that are like all... crunched up, do they look dead? Are they sedated? I wonder if they're sedated or if they are dead or like near death. And then Zeke will be our spear and Reiner will be our shield. And that's funny. That's funny because back in Parody, we were talking about the Ackermans and the Eastern Clan. It said that the Ackermans were the spear of the royal family, and then I debated whether or not the Eastern Clan was the shield. That's funny. So Zeke being the spear and Reiner the shield, that's interesting. But yeah, man, Zeke looks good too. He's like cut his hair and his beard. He looks more and more like Grisha. It's kind of creepy. He looks more and more like Grisha. And then, oh God, they just give us the close-up of Reiner with the damn facial hair. This show, why? Why are you doing this? Why? I know! Just giving us this shot of Reiner looking all hot. I hate it. All right, so information available for public disclosure. Glad we're back to that. Marley, a military dictatorship. And then you can see the Beast Titan and Gilliard. And it looks like, well, that looks like the Colossal Titan, though. So, interesting. Following the Great Titan War, where the hero Helos led them to victory, Marley was revived as a formidable military power, utilizing 7 of the 9 Titans as warriors. Marley conquers enemy nations with their overwhelming strength. In addition to their warriors, Marley's army, navy, and airborne forces assist in trampling their enemies. Okay. Helos. I feel like that is mythological in some sense. So, Helos. We're going to put that down here, Helos. We don't know which Titan Helos was, but Helos apparently led them to victory during the Great Titan War to gain back 7 of the 9 Titans. So 2 of the Titans ran off. Okay. Helos. We don't know which one Helos was. I'm assuming maybe the Beast Titan, but we don't know for sure. Interesting. So yeah, Marley's basically, we got hints of it back in episode 20 and 21, but it wasn't fully explained from Grisha's perspective. He didn't really write that in the book, so to speak, or that we saw. But basically, Marley's been just conquering the world using the Titan Shifter powers. Interesting. Even though the country itself isn't as in great shape as it makes itself out to be, it seems representative of actual history too. Interesting. All right. Good to know, Helos. I feel like that name's going to be important, so I want to remember it. But yeah, and then it's just war. It's stupid war. And yeah, just them going into battle. God. It's so tragic. And just them crawling over the piles of Eldians. Ugh. And seeing like the smoke and everything and all the gunshots and firing. It's so... And then there's Gilliard, yeah, trackling. Yeah, because, I mean, in their eyes, Gilliard and Piek are heroes because they're saving their people and taking out the train and everything. And the Jaw Titan, like, ripping up the train tracks. Hell yeah. I love it. And then we see this mechanized cart titan with the man in the iron mask. Oh my god. Like the iron mask protecting its face and nape. And then it has like this harness. And on the harness is this like series of turrets that spins around like the turrets in the basement. Very similar to the turrets in the basement that they used to fight the Titans back in episode 6. Episode 4 or 6 of episode 6 of season 1. But yeah, the turrets and everything. And they're on his back. I'm like, oh, what the hell? Oh my god, it's crazy. And then he just like takes the head and just plunks it up. I wondered how the cart titan would be effective at all in military battle. And then this scene happens and I'm like, oh, huh. So good to know. Good to know. But yeah. And then they just go down and start killing all of them. God, it's just like it's the weirdest thing. It is the weirdest thing seeing these titans like being used in war like this, like in an actual like realistic battle. It's so bizarre. It's like it's otherworldly. Because like when you see them when you saw them in season 1, because it was kind of medieval and fantasy and they were just fighting with like arrows and swords, it seems so simplistic now. It seems like, oh man, look at them fighting with swords and stuff. Wasn't that fun? Wasn't that exciting and just a fantasy romp? And now you're like, man, no, what if World War II had titans involved? And there's your answer. And so yeah, Gabi and them getting dressed back over again. And then I like that the Magath guys like why do Marley and like me get shot at, and as Udo's bandaging his wounds. He's like, you Eldians are supposed to soak up the bullets. Like come on, like he's so awful. And then the one guy's like, he's in no shape to fight us anymore. And so we established some things with Falco. And some personality traits. We don't get a lot with Zofia. We don't get a lot with Zofia's personality. She doesn't say a whole lot in this. We get the idea that Udo seems like he's analytical, but he's kind of hot-tempered. We get that with his character. We get with Gabi that she is very fiery. She is very ambitious. She is very brave. And then with Falco, he's very compassionate. We get that he's very compassionate and sincere because he saves the guy, the Salva, the Mideast Allied Forces man, and tries to get a tourniquet to save him. And then Gabi's like, oh, is that supposed to be your selling point? That you're willing to help the enemy? That obeying the laws of war is going to earn you a spot as the armored titan? And she's looking at it from like it's a game, like it's a points value system. She's like, oh, well, just because you're abiding by the laws of war, you think that's going to get you this spot? And I don't think Falco cares at that point. Because she's like, it's not going to help, you know. And yeah, Falco says, like, I care. He's like, I'm just helping him. And she's saying, well, you're a weirdo, because Gabi has convinced herself at this point that she's convinced herself, like Reiner, that the war is inevitable and that there's nothing they can do. And she's like, we just have to treat them like they're not human and kill them and move on. And Falco seems to almost kind of have like a more compassionate side to him where he's like, no, this is the right thing to do. And they can't understand what the guy is saying, right? So Falco can't understand what the guy is saying, but apparently Udo can translate. Udo apparently knows other languages. And Udo looks so sad. And I love when he turns away, he has the stereotypical anime, you can't see what his eyes are like behind the glasses. And Falco's like, what's he trying to say? Interpret, Udo. Say I stopped his bleeding and that he'll be fine. Yeah, so Falco's like, tell the guy that you stopped the bleeding, that he's going to be okay. And Udo's like, he's telling you don't touch me. Yeah. He's like, I'll be tainted. You devil. Ugh. As she like pulls up the armband. And then the Marleyan guy laughs. That's like the sick thing about it, is that Falco was trying to help him and was wanting Udo to interpret and tell him it'll be okay. And Udo had heard what he had said, and he told Falco that basically he's like, oh, he's just saying not to touch him. And then the Marley and the Magath, it wasn't Magath, it was the other guy, the guy that was with Magath, but he just laughs about it. God, I feel so bad for all the Eldians, because I'm like, they're, especially the ones here on the Marleyan side, because they don't know what, they can't help it. It's just like, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, you know? And there's like a flare that comes up. I wonder with the flares, if that's something Zeke brought back over the last 4 years. I wonder if that's something that happened. And so they all retreat, and they say, get away from the front, don't get caught in it. Because that's when all the Titans are going to go down. Damn. And then she says, it's begun. And this part too is horrifying too. Because for them, they're watching their own people get transformed into Titans to be used as living weapons like they are, except in Titan form, they're consuming people and they have no control over their actions. They're just mindless beings acting on instinct, and that's it. At least with Gabi and the others in the trenches, they have their own free will and their own wits about them, right? Once they get transformed into the pure Titans, they have no clue what's going on. They're just living weapons, and they're completely unaware of what's happening. God. And they're just dumping them out like corpses. And those people have no clue what's happening. But they're just parachuting them down. Yeah, just like, they're like bombs. They're literally bombs. The Titans being dropped are literally bombs. And just, and some of them seem like they're angry. Some of them seem sad. Some of them seem like they're half dead. Oh my God. It's crazy. And some of them seem happy. I wonder if they've been like sedated. I don't know. And then Reiner, God. And then Reiner, this beefcake with this knife, shows up. And Zeke. I like says as again, Isayama trying to make him a joke character. I don't know, because it's such dark humor where he's like, let me scream. Yeah. And then he makes them all transform. So he can use that without being the Beast Titan, which is terrifying. But yeah, he like basically activates all the bombs. And then yeah, and Colt's like about to cry. And Udo can't look, and Sophia looks so sad. Yeah, they just watch their people basically be transformed into living bombs. It's... God. And they're probably thinking that they don't know if any of them are their family or friends or anything like that. They have no clue. Or they're people they know that were just offered up as sacrifices. Damn. This is awful. But yeah. And then they all fall down. But yeah, because they don't instantly die, they just crash in there. And if they don't die upon impact, then they're just gonna walk around and destroy things. It's the most twisted thing, right? The most twisted thing. And this, of course, is why the rest of the world calls them devils. Because they're monsters. Ugh. It's bonkers. It's wild. This final season is going to be crazy because it's going to be frustrating just like this. And it just shows like what we've seen from like the whole series so far. Truly devils. Because it goes back to what Gross said. He's like, this is you in your true form, right? And these Eldians have been conditioned to think that. And it's just truly devils. Our Marleyan ancestors were eaten just like that. Like just adding on guilt. Like just adding guilt to them by you Eldians. Our Marleyan ancestors were eaten by you Eldians during the Empire. He's like trying to make them feel bad. Like, look what your ancestors did to us. This is why we're like this to you. And then yeah, so they try to fire at them. The blood looks a lot more animated and dark in this, which it's supposed to, but the blood seemed almost cartoonish in a way in season 1, especially like the way that it is more stylistic, and in this it's like, nah, it's just blood. It's like, cool. And then in comes Reiner, our dude. The kinetic bombardment went well. And he's got like a gun on his hip, so like if he had to fire it at somebody that was trying to attack him, he could. But due to the altitude, half of them died on impact. Yeah. So he's saying that basically like half the Titans, as soon as they fell, they died because of the impact of it. A lot of the anti-Titan cannons are still operational. 28, 29. I know their locations, but still. More walls. And then yeah, and God. So Reiner in that moment, when he looks down and sees the cannon fire and sees the train tracks and everything, for a second I was like, it was confusing in a second too, because I was like, wait, we're not at parity. But when he looks down and sees the Titans on the walls, he sees himself. I'm looking there. He sees Mikasa and Armin. He sees Connie and Sasha. And he sees Bertolt and himself and Aaron. Like, he sees them working on that cannon. He says more walls. So I'm wondering if when he's talking about that, if he's able to communicate, because they're the Titan shifters, if they can communicate with one another. If Zeke can hear him talking. He says more walls. And I love that it blurs a little bit in his eyes. So again, establishing that Reiner hasn't, even in 4 years, Reiner hasn't fully changed. Like, the other personas are still there. Like, he's still traumatized from what happened 9 years ago and what happened over the last 9 years. Like, it's still traumatizing him. God. Okay. I'm sick and tired of walls. I love it. God, I regret putting Reiner back in A. It's Levi 2.0. Levi at the beginning of season 3, I'm like, I dropped him down to A rank and he rose back up to S rank. Reiner, it's, again, history repeating itself. Isayama's doing this to me. I drop Reiner down to A rank. What does he do this episode? He moves right back up to S, you know? But yeah, oh my god, him becoming the Armored Titan. They animate the Armored Titan pretty good, and I like the Titan transformations that Mappa does for this. Like, it's very stylized. I like it. Wit does a really good job of making it look so operatic, though. I'm curious to see what else happens in this season with the animation. It's going to be very interesting seeing it from Mappa is so clean in their animation, if that makes sense. Everything is the line work is so clean and smooth that it looks gorgeous. There's something about Wit's animation I really love, so I'm going to be curious to see as this goes on, especially when we get back to the parody side of things and see them, what that's going to look like. That's going to be very interesting. But yeah, kill it, you know. And then Reiner just like going in a circle, just taking it all out. Because with these walls, you don't have to worry about there being Titans within them. There are not. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that. But these guys have shells that can penetrate the Titan's armor. And they just chop off. Within 2 seconds, they take an arm off. I'm like, okay. Yeah, within like 2 minutes, they like take an arm off him already. He's like, what hit me? And it's the train again. There's another armored train like rising up from like a conveyor belt with the coal and stuff. And that's the thing too. It's like burning the coal to run. And it's like, so Marley can't access any technology like what the Mideast Allied forces have, because they don't have the fossil fuel resources. That's why they need to go to parody to get all those things, supposedly, along with the Founding Titan. But they had to put that on hold because these guys were attacking them. So, but yeah, it's funny because Reiner, at the beginning of this series, I put him like on par with the Colossal Titan, but he's really on par with Eren. He's really on par with the Attack Titan more than anything, which is interesting. But yeah, the animation's pretty good in this. And I like the angles. And then he's about to get attacked, but then Galliard comes in and looks at him. Okay. Huh. Yeah, so I'm establishing there's friendship with Galliard and Reiner, which, who better to understand us than one of our own, right? He told Bertolt that, so I'm curious to meet Galliard. I want to see him not in Titan form and what he looks like. If he actually has blonde hair like this or if he does not. I'm very curious. But Reiner just slinging that train around, causing all this damage like you do. He's lost an arm. And then, yeah, seeing Galliard over there. And, cool. And it's like they acknowledge each other. Like they look over at each other and acknowledge that they both did a good job. It's like, and you want to root for him in that moment. You can't help it, right? And then in comes Zeke. Here he comes. And Reiner's just like wheeling them all in. And he's like, okay, they got it under control. Our defeat brought about this war, Reiner. Yeah. And it's going to tie it all back around that it was their fault. And in that moment, I'm trying to get a good close-up of Zeke. Zeke looks a lot like Grisha. Like, he has Grisha's eyes. But he looks a lot like... He has Dinah in him, too. But he definitely looks like Grisha. Our defeat brought about this war. Yeah. And then they're all like... And so Colt knows that's the Titan that he's supposed to inherit. The Beast one. I love this line that Zeke says, isn't war a terrible thing? God, that line! Oh, that line is so... Zeke, okay. I'm very neutral on Zeke. There are parts of Zeke I like and parts of him I'm like still unsure about. But yeah, isn't war a terrible thing? And he grabs all the shells and puts them together like a baseball because he's like, you know, got that childhood trauma and reverts somewhat back to his childhood. And then the fleet there. And then he does the whole pitch thing. That's like his special move is the pitch. And then Udo says, finally with this, the war will be over. That once they to get the fleet out of the way. And so, yeah, him throwing the things and then firing at the same time. That they're firing at him. And then Reiner goes in to save him. Reiner jumps in to take the blunt of the blows because Reiner has the armor and Zeke does not. So Reiner could suffer through getting hit by like that. And then Zeke comes in with damn, with the thing and takes out the fleet with the bombs. And sinks the whole fleet at the base where Salva is. Damn. And it shows all them, like all the bodies and everything sinking to the bottom of the ocean. Oh my gosh. So yeah, with their fleet destroyed. And then we get Armin narrating again. And the moment Armin started narrating, I got so excited because I was like, are we going to see anything? Are we going to see them? Are we going to see Armin and them, please? But with their fleet destroyed, the Mideast Allied forces signed a peace treaty with Marley. Funny that they ended with a peace treaty. Because they knew they couldn't beat Marley. So they signed the peace treaty in the end, which means that Marley just took over, basically. And the war spanning 4 years ended in a Marleyan victory. A Marleyan victory. A Marleyan victory. Funny that, when it wasn't the Marleyans that fought, it was the Eldians. But as the world learned that the era of Titan domination was coming to an end. And yeah, Reiner, God, his Titan is just spent. Like, just completely wrecked. So yeah, as the world learned that the era of Titan domination was coming to an end. Marley was pressed to obtain the founding Titan as quickly as possible. And yeah, I love that shot of Zeke looking down at Reiner. Like Zeke looking at Reiner like this, like I would have been dead right now if it hadn't have been for you saving me. And probably knowing that they're prepping a candidate to succeed Reiner. Interesting, yeah, right? And then we cut back to Falco and Gabi and she says, oh no. Ugh. So yeah, interesting. And so then we have a shot of Salva in the distance burning. Like the shot of them burning. So I'm assuming the oh no is that Reiner and them were hurt. But I feel bad for Reiner. And Zeke in this. And all the Eldians. I do. But yeah, then we get the shot of the newspaper. And they say, thanks to the incredible bravery of the Marley army, Fort Slava has fallen at last. Yeah. And then, so, unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable because it wasn't Marley at all. It was the Eldians. But that's the thing. They've spun it. The newspaper has spun it so that everybody thinks Marley is the victor, but they don't realize who's been fighting the war for them. And it's been their slaves. God. Ha ha ha. That's our Marley army for you, isn't it though? And then look at this horse face. Look at him pay for that newspaper. Oh my God, with the hair. It's the same color hair as Jean. It's the same color hair. It's grown out. That's the bottom of his head. I didn't become vice president of the Jean fan club, the Jean Kirstein fan club for nothing. And then taking that paper. Right. Isn't that Jean though? I feel like that's Jean. I feel like it's Jean. So if it is Jean, and this ED, before we talk about that theory, this ED with Falco is really cool with the birds. Isayama, it's no coincidence that Falco has the name of the bird. And the bird erupting into different, into the founding Titan trajectory and everything. It's so fascinating, right? So fascinating. And then all the spirals and everything of light and colors. It's a really cool ED, like the ED and OP coming together. And then, yeah, the Aurora Borealis, this big tree branching out. And there was a woman at the bottom of it. So I'm like, is that Ymir Fritz? And then someone grasping the power of the sun, baby. And that ties back to Falco reaching towards the sun and telling them to leave at the beginning. Yep. I love it. And it kind of ties back to the part 1 opening where you had the hand coming up to the sun and with the cut across it. That was really good too. But then, yeah, the bird flying away, and that's it. Interesting enough. So, yeah, it's either Jean or it's someone that we haven't met yet. It's one of the two. I think that it's Jean because it looks like Jean. It has the horse face. It has the long hair that's the same color as Jean's. And I am desperate to see them again in a 4-year time skip. So I think it's Jean, but the question is, if it is in fact Jean, how did he sneak in? Because, well, technically, with the blood test and everything, they could sneak in as Eldians because they all technically are Eldians. So they could sneak in. Or how could they forge papers? Unless Grisha's book maybe talks about what the permits look like. And so they could forge permits to get into the city. Maybe. And it would be kind of cool if this whole time, if the Levi squad snuck into Marley, if that's been the thing, if the Levi squad snuck into Marley to infiltrate from the inside, that would be really cool. Like, let's go inside and get the other Titans back our way and do it this way. That would be interesting if that's what they did. If they snuck inside Marley over the last 4 years, they've infiltrated and they've been secretly sneaking in to try to steal back the Titan powers. That would be really cool. Okay. That would be really neat. It's either Jean, and that's what they've done. They've been, these last 4 years, they've been trying to infiltrate into Marley and sneak in and assimilate and figure out what's going on and attack from the inside, which would be really freaking cool. So it's either that or this is a new character that we don't know. I'm fine either way. If it's Jean, I'm going to be elated. If it's a new character, I'm going to be excited too, because Isayama has a tendency to introduce new characters and they end up being freaking cool. So I'm fine with it. But yeah, holy crap. This first episode was really, really good. Really good. And I kind of loved it. And I'm really excited to see what happens now. This episode, it went by so quickly, but there was so much that happened. And I love that we're getting the Marley inside of it and just figuring out just how awful it is. Like, the Eldian people they're trapped either way. I feel like the Eldian people are trapped either way. They're either trapped in parody, where they're surrounded by the walls and they don't have freedom, or they're trapped within Marley and they don't have freedom either. It's just, I feel bad for all the Eldians on all sides. And I guess that's it's funny going back to season 1. In season 1, I'm like, oh, well, there's Reiner's side and there's Eren on the other side. It's like, no, there's really multiple sides to all of this. There's the parody side. There's the Eldians working for Marley. There's Marley itself. There's the rest of the world and all of its different factions. Like, we just saw one of them in this episode. So there's so many, it's not just a black or white issue. There's all these shades of gray. And it's so fascinating because it's just, I feel bad for all the Eldians. I do, because they didn't ask for any of this, right? We established back, according to the Marleyan timeline, they didn't ask for any of it. The Eldians, the original 9 Titan shifters, just kind of started their own empire and slowly took over. So the current generation of Eldians didn't ask for this at all. But they're here, and it's a cruel world, so what do we do with it? I'm amazed that we didn't see anybody other than Reiner and Zeke, that we didn't see any familiar faces. Reiner and Zeke and maybe Jean at the end were the only familiar faces we got, and that was it. And Piek, now that we know him, the Cart Titan, we know him now. So yeah, those are the only familiar faces. We didn't see Armin or any of the main crew. Curious that. I find it's a smart move of Isayama to introduce us to these 4 kids and Cult, because that's getting us, if you're going to have your audience relate to both sides, what better way to do that than to have a group of children on the other side of the fence and showing what their lives are like to get you to understand what they're going through. I'm like, that's so genius. I'm like, that's genius, Isayama. That's good storytelling. That's the way to do it. That's the way to tug at the heartstrings, is get old Gabi and Falco in them. Falco is a very curious character, and I'm excited to see where his character goes. And Gabi's interesting too. It's going to be very interesting to see. I'm like, Isayama, I'm like, is Falco going to end up being like Marlowe, or is he going to be something more than that? That's the thing, right? I feel like Colt's going to die. I feel like Colt is not going to take over Zeke's power. I could be totally wrong, though. I could be wrong, but I feel like Colt is not going to become the Beast Titan. I feel like that's not going to be the case. Whether Falco becomes the Beast Titan, that remains to be seen, because that's his brother. And again, you're setting up these things with, you have Falco and Colt, and you have Eren and Zeke. So we're setting something up there, right? But curious. I'm so excited, y'all. I'm really, really excited. I did not feel like I had a brain melt this episode. I felt like I walked into this episode so refreshed, and now I feel like, oh, we're on the final season, and this is the story, and I'm really excited about it. So I've talked long enough. I've talked for a good hour and 45 minutes. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. What you guys thought of this episode. Obviously, no spoilers, please, but okay. Let's do this. So this has me really hyped for season 4 already. I'm excited to see where it takes us. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back soon with episode 2 of season 4 of Attack on Titan. Bye.